Hi, everyone, and welcome to Foods That Heal interview series, where we explore the power of food and show you how to eat in order to live a healthier and longer life. My name is Vicky, and today we're going to talk about ketogenic diet. And to do that, I have the pleasure to have the ketogenic specialist, Dr. Will Cole. Hi, Dr. Cole.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. So, Dr. Cole is a leading functional medicine practitioner, and he specializes in clinically investigating underlying factors and customizing health program for chronic conditions such as thyroid issues, autoimmune, hormonal dysfunction, and much more. So Dr. Wilco consults in Pittsburgh locally and also throughout the world via webcam. He is a health writer for international publications such as Mind, Body, Green, and he lectures nationally. So once again, welcome, Dr. Cole. And first off, can you explain what is functional medicine and why did you decide to take that route instead of the mainstream medicine?
Yeah, great place to start. My health journey started pretty young. I grew up in a family that kind of revered wellness and being healthy, and at least being mindful of that in the 80s and 90s when that wasn't so much an in thing. It was kind of the fringe, was the random crunchy community around the country and around the world. It's not what it was today. It wasn't so glossy and sexy as it is today. It was a lot less cool. So yeah, I kind of started then growing up and kind of seeing the impact that food can have on one's health, or the wrong foods have on their health problems. And I knew that I wanted to get into healthcare. I knew I wanted to help people. I didn't know what it would look like. So I had gone to a sort of integrative wellness medical school, sort of this fusion of West and East already. It was Southern California University of Health Sciences in Los Angeles. And there were medical doctors, doctors of chiropractic, naturopaths, acupuncturists, oriental medicine doctors, nurse practitioners, kind of all there, getting people well and learning about health sciences. And I heard of a guy called Datis Karazian who had gone to my school, was older than I was, and he was talking about this thing called functional medicine. I thought, wow, that's amazing. This fusion of the best of Western medicine, which is being evidence-based and running labs and being thorough from a clinical standpoint, and the best of alternative health, which is actually getting somebody healthy and not just prescribing medications to make labs look prettier. It was fantastic, and I never have looked back since. And now, as you had said at the top of the conversation, about 90% of the people that I consult with are in other states and countries, and primarily we're a virtual functional medicine practice. And it's just such a humbling experience, and to be a part of one sacred journey into wellness. And I take that very seriously, and I just love what I do. And kind of answer your question on what functional medicine is, it is that. It's the fusion of the best of Western medicine, the best of alternative or Eastern medicine. And if I had to boil it down and be specific about that and why that is, number one, we interpret labs using a thinner reference range. So what that means on a practical level is that anybody that's listening here or watching now will know, hey, when I get my basic labs from my doctor, I'll have my number, and then I'll have this reference range where they're comparing my number to. And if it's outside of that range, it's a bold font, it's high or low, and it's a conversation maybe with your doctor. Well, we get that reference range from a statistical bell curve average of people who go to labs. And people that go to labs aren't the healthiest bunch of people predominantly. So there's a lot of people that are going to their doctor to say, hey, I don't feel this good. I have these symptoms, X, Y, and Z. And the doctor says, there's nothing wrong with you. All your labs are normal. Maybe you're just depressed. There's an antidepressant. And what they're unintentionally saying is if you're going through symptoms despite normal labs, you're a lot like the other sick people that make up the population of that reference range, and that they're comparing you to that average. If you take people with health problems out of the reference range, what's left is a tighter range typically of people that live long, healthy, vibrant, thriving lives. And it's a much thinner interval of numbers within that larger reference range. That's the functional range, where your body is functioning the best. And that's where we get our name, functional medicine.
Right. Okay.
The second thing we do differently is we run more comprehensive labs. So we're looking at root issues like microbiome issues or toxicity or hormonal imbalances or food sensitivities, whatever is relevant to the individual. So we're being more comprehensive with our labs. And we realize we're all created differently. There's not a cookie cutter approach to getting well. And we want to really tailor healthcare to the individual. So that's kind of, if I had to boil it down, that's what we do differently in functional medicine.
And does functional medicine replace the traditional medicine?
It can, definitely. The Cleveland Clinic has a functional medicine center. I mean, when I was talking about functional medicine a decade ago, there was no Cleveland Clinic functional medicine center. People were just learning about it. Now I think the mainstream part of the mainstream, and there's some amazing people at the Cleveland Clinic that are seeing the need for reshaping primary care. So there's definitely aspects to functional medicine that absolutely can be integrated. And that's another word for functional medicine, is integrative medicine, is integrating into the mainstream primary care. But for the most part, I would say it's complementary to it, meaning they're still going to get the appropriate checkups from your PCP or endocrinologist. We're not replacing that entirely, but we are giving people options in their healthcare.
Okay, awesome. And you focus on ketogenic diet. So can you explain, because we hear ketogenic diet everywhere, but not everybody knows specifically what it is. So can you give a brief description of what it is, a ketogenic diet?
Yeah. So I am not a ketogenic doctor, meaning I don't hang my hat on one thing for everybody. And that's really the heart of functional medicine, is that we really have to look at the individual. But with that said, I have predominantly, my week is spent with seeing patients and seeing applications of food and natural medicines and lifestyle changes and how that can impact one's health. There is very few lifestyle applications that can really match the ketogenic diet if it's done healthily. So absolutely, I live and breathe applying that in people's lives when it's clinically appropriate. And I'm on a podcast, so it's called Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore. So I get people's questions about the ketogenic diet every week too. So beyond patients, I have to answer a lot of questions about this as well. So what is the ketogenic diet? What the heck is it?
Yeah.
It is in short, shifting your body from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. So we have two basic forms of fuel our body does, burning sugar for fuel or burning fat for fuel. Most people around us are in this sugar burning mode. So they're going from one meal to the next. They're typically having to snack in between meals. They're always thinking about the next meal because it's like kindling on a fire. It'll cause a flame, but it will burn out quickly. So you have to put the kindling and put the kindling and put the kindling throughout the day just to maintain that fire or that energy or that fuel throughout the day. That is an option for people, but it can leave in its midst, it can leave a lot of pollution or a lot of smog, a lot of smoke in the air, to use the fire analogy. And that's what sugar kindling can do. It can leave the byproduct of inflammation. And I'm not talking just about sugar like candy. It's also foods that turn into sugar, even real foods. So fruits or grains, those have some benefits, right? They can be real foods, but what do they break down to is sugar. That is a form of fuel. And I'm not saying nobody can eat those and they're always bad. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if that's your primary fuel source, if that is what you're going to as the foundation of your fuel, that is akin to kindling. It's an option, but it's not very sustainable and can leave by some inflammation in the body.
Because you go on a high and then you go down and then you go like this.
It's a blood sugar roller coaster.
Okay.
So it's very erratic, and you need to refuel often. The second option is burning fat for fuel. And that is shifting your body metabolically to not depend so much on sugar. Your body will always burn sugar, but we're saying it's a secondary fuel source, not the primary fuel source. So making fat your primary fuel source means you'll burn fat. Your body will use its own fat for fuel, as well as dietary fat, which is like a log on the fire. It's going to burn slowly, more sustainably. You have to refuel less often. It's a lot cleaner fuel as well. So it's like a hybrid car versus a big, semi-truck that's burning smog in the air. So it is running more efficiently from a metabolic standpoint. So when the body starts in this fat burning or ketogenic, that's what the term means, fat burning, your body produces ketones. One of them is called beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB. And beta-hydroxybutyrate is this ketone. Your body naturally produces it. It's just a part of nutritional ketosis, or a natural fat burning state. And then your body is using this ketone for a lot of cool things. So it uses it for fuel. It's like that log on the fire. And it also passes through the blood-brain barrier and gives your brain fuel. So it's really good for brain sharpness and thinking very clearly and decreasing brain fog. But it's also anti-inflammatory. So it drives inflammation levels down, which is really the commonality between every chronic health problem that we face today. So it's anti-inflammatory, and also it helps, can pass through the cell wall and help with a mitochondrial biogenesis, which just means making new mitochondria, which is like your cellular energy. So it has a lot of cool clinical applications, health reasons why to do that. So that's what the heart of a ketogenic or keto is.
And just to go back to what you said, you talked about the beta ketone.
Beta-hydroxybutyrate,
Yes, thank you. I could not say that. What is a ketone for those watching who don't know?
Yeah, it's just a chemical compound. It's like a carbon, oxygen, hydrogen sort of compound that your body makes.
Okay.
So it's a natural source of fuel that your body makes. So fat by its will break down into ketone bodies. So we're talking about ketones. They're really fat bodies or ketone bodies, and they are just a group, a natural source of fuel that your body produces.
Okay, and what would be one example of that type of ketone?
So beta-hydroxybutyrate is one type of ketone. You have acetoacetate, which is another type of ketone, and acetone. So to get your body to produce ketones naturally, the one goal, the one step that someone can make in their life is decreasing carbohydrates in their body. So that's sugar and things that turn into sugar, decreasing sugar content. And then, well, you can't just not eat anything for the rest of your life, even though intermittent fasting is a way to increase ketones. And that's one of the health benefits of intermittent fasting, is that it increases ketosis. But the other form of it, from a food medicine standpoint, if you're decreasing carbohydrates, you're going to have to increase healthier fats. You have to eat something eventually, even if you're the best intermittent faster in the world.
Right.
The healthy fats is going to fill that caloric deficit that you've decreased the carbs. You're going to increase these healthier fats. So those are, depending on who you talk to, but they are like plant fats like coconut oil, avocados, avocado oil, olives, olive oil, nuts and seeds, and then eggs and butter and grass-fed ghee and fish and grass-fed beef. Those are all healthier fat sources that people can focus on when they're decreasing the carbohydrate content.
Okay.
That's the answer to that one.
But can there be any problem because there's too much fat in the body with the ketogenic diet, the conventional one?
Yeah, so I do find problems in the conventional ketogenic diet for sure. I think, and that's why I wrote a book about it. It's coming out this summer. I'm super excited about it. It's on pre-order now. It's called Ketotarian. Ketotarian is this amalgamation of the best of the plant-based diet and the best of the keto diet, and kind of fusing them together. And that's this ketotarian way of living your life. And the book was really born out of me seeing on a patient level and a podcast, that conversation level with people on how they were doing the ketogenic diet wrong. And one of the problems that I find in people trying to do the right thing, trying to do this keto thing, they're actually focusing on any food as long as it fits their macros. So macronutrients are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And if a ketogenic diet is high fat, moderate protein, lower carbohydrate, they think with good intentions, hey, this is high fat, low carb, I'm going to eat it because it's keto. And they're not looking at the quality of food. They're just looking at the macronutrient, high fat, low carb component to it.
Right, got it.
Because something's high fat, low carb doesn't inherently mean it's healthy. And you have to look at the quality of foods. And a lot of people in the keto world are going towards lots of dairy products because it's easy. It's at a lot of different places, so it's accessible, and most people enjoy it. And a lot of meat that's fatty, just any old meat. And it works for some people. Some people do great on dairy. Some people do great on lots of red meat. But a lot of people don't do well on a lot of those foods as their primary source. And they're not getting a lot of variety there. And people can have dairy sensitivity. Some people don't do well on lots of red meat. And that's a problem there. So that's why I wrote Ketotarian, to give a plant-based ketogenic approach that has vegan options, vegetarian options, and pescatarian options, or what I call vegetarian, basically plant-based with wild-caught fish and shellfish and that kind of stuff. So it gives people more variety. They don't have to just eat meat and dairy all the time. They can actually have this plant-based component to their keto lifestyle.
And the benefit of moving to the plant-based ketogenic compared to the conventional ketogenic diet is the variety that you offer, a variety of foods that you can eat. And I believe there's some recipes as well in your book, correct?
Yeah, over 80 different recipes. A lot of pretty pictures for people who like to look at food and not make it, but also the recipes as well. So you can make it into your life an easy way. You don't have to be, a fancy chef or Martha Stewart to be healthy. And you can eat really decadent, delicious, satiating foods. And that's what really the heart of ketosis and a ketogenic diet is. And why it's so successful for so people and so sustainable for people is because it curbs appetite and curbs craving when you're a fat burner. So that's one of the reasons why most diets fail, is because they can do it for a little bit, but then sheer willpower will fail because you'll end up giving into the cravings. So this is mitigated dramatically when someone becomes a fat burner. They don't have those cravings. They're off the blood sugar roller coaster. So that's with all ketogenic diets. I just want to put someone into ketosis healthily and not be fearful of plant foods, because many people in the keto world are becoming fearful of plant foods or avoiding plant foods, to put it mildly, because of their carb content. So non-starchy vegetables still have some carbs. Other vegetables still have some carbs.
Okay.
So I teach in Ketotarian how you can, it's very easy. You would consider net carbs, which is total carbohydrates minus the fiber content and any sugar alcohols. Because that has been shown to really be beneficial at decreasing blood sugar, decreasing inflammation, and feeding a healthy gut microbiome, which is a major component to our health. It's 75% of the immune system, the microbiome, the trillions of bacteria in our gut, and we need fiber from plant foods to feed our gut microbiome.
Okay. And does anyone can move to a plant-based ketogenic diet, or is it addressed to specific condition, or it can prevent, or what type of people can move to a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, so has a lot of really cool health benefits. A ketogenic diet does, especially when done healthily. And it decreases inflammation. It's good for brain function. It's good for becoming a fat burner. It's good for decreasing insulin resistance, or prediabetes, metabolic syndrome. It's good for brain issues like autism, and it's good for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. Dr. Brednisen's doing a lot of research out of UCLA with mild ketosis for that. Has a lot of cool health benefits. But basically, it calms inflammation levels down, which is applying to basically almost everybody in the West. And so there's really no downsides to it, but it's, should someone be in ketosis forever and ever? That's, I think, where it depends on the person. So what I say in Ketotarian is to put about 2 months in, put about 8 weeks in to make your body from a sugar burner to a fat burner, and you'll feel better, you'll feel more sharp, you'll get to know how your body's operating. And then at that point, you can personalize it, and I teach different ways to find your carbohydrate sweet spot, basically increasing carbs. And some people do fine on higher carbohydrates from real foods, and they do great. And then some people want to do ketosis maybe seasonally, or maybe they want to do it whenever they just need a rehab, like a rejuvenating, reset their system, so to speak, metabolically. And
like
then
cleanse.
Yeah, right. A little mini keto cleanse. And then some people want to do it even throughout the week. They'll even cycle throughout the week. They'll do a couple days keto and a couple days higher carbs, and they cycle it and they feel great doing it there. We're all different. And that's really the heart of functional medicine. So I think put the time in to become keto, fat burner. Then what you get is metabolic flexibility.
Okay.
And you have the grace and the lightness to ebb and flow out of ketosis if you want to, and if you feel great doing so. And that's really the goal of why I wrote the book.
Okay, awesome. And you talk about something in your book called the autoimmune inflammation. Can you tell me a little bit more about the autoimmune inflammation spectrum?
Yeah, so that's my heart really is dealing with people on the autoimmune inflammation spectrum. That's most of my patients, and that's another reason why I wrote the book, because I know the clinical benefits of these lifestyle changes that can make in many of their lives. So there's about 50 million Americans and millions more worldwide that have autoimmune diseases. And the criteria for diagnosis for most autoimmune conditions are really end-stage problems, meaning they've been going on for a long time before they've gotten bad enough for them to be labeled with an ICD-10 code or a diagnosis code in the standard model of care. They happen on average 10 years prior to the diagnosis is when these things start to begin. Now, that sort of reactionary approach to healthcare, basically waiting till your body has destroyed enough of itself, which is what autoimmunity is. It's when the immune system is attacking different parts of the body, to then say, well, here's a steroid, or here's a biologic drug, here's an immunosuppressant, to then, anybody on those medications will tell you it's not a long-term solution. You have lots of potential side effects. Now, there's that what we know in the clinical data and what we talk about in functional medicine and have so for years is that autoimmune diseases are really the end stage of a larger continuum or spectrum of this autoimmune inflammation. So there are 3 stages to this spectrum. There's silent autoimmunity, meaning if you ran labs, you would see positive antibodies, but they're not really having any symptoms. And then the second section or second stage of that autoimmune inflammation spectrum is autoimmune reactivity, meaning you're having symptoms, you don't feel well, you have positive labs, but you're not bad enough to be the full-blown stage 3 autoimmune disease where they'll call it by a name. Now, there has to be a lot of destruction in most cases for them to say you have this autoimmune disease. Like, for example, there has to be 90% destruction of the adrenal glands before they say, this is Addison's disease, this is autoimmune.
Oh, wow.
And similar numbers for MS and celiac disease, about 70-80% destruction of the brain and myelin sheath and the gut, a lot of it destroyed. And then they say, well, okay, it fits our criteria and let's give it a diagnosis code and here's this medication. That 10 years prior is when these things are brewing, this inflammatory storm is brewing on the horizon. And it's, okay, why wait till we're bad enough to then be put on a med? And even though those people have much hope there as well, I'm not saying that's all as lost when you are stage 3, but what's the earliest, how can we take action on our health as early as possible? And we talk about prevention is the best medicine. This is what we're talking about. Not just prevention, but acting as soon as we start seeing things not working our way. Let's do something now and not be so reactionary. Let's be proactive.
Right.
And that's really where I spend most of my week, is about 30, 40 hours a week, I'm immersed in patient cases to get them these tools that they need to reclaim their health.
Okay. Okay. So let's try to be proactive here, and let me know, what is one food that you would recommend to integrate into a diet to prevent an autoimmune a disease or a condition?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I would say that a third of autoimmunity, one third of this puzzle is known to be genetic. So there's a genetic component to it. And 2/3 is epigenetic. So these are the things we're talking about. Majority of autoimmunity has to do with epigenetics, and these are the lifestyle facets that turn on our genetic predispositions. So our genes, our DNA, haven't changed in about 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. But yet we have an unchanged DNA, but yet we see an explosion of autoimmunity and cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all those other things as well. But specifically with autoimmunity, 50 million Americans and millions more on the autoimmune inflammation spectrum. Our genetics aren't there. You can't explain the explosion by DNA alone.
No.
Our DNA hasn't changed. So that means the numbers shouldn't change. The variable is not just better diagnosis. The variable is this mismatch between our DNA and the world around us, or epigenetics, which is really at the heart of autoimmune research. Many of them is looking at this mismatch between our DNA and this brave new world that it's now living in, which has changed very dramatically in a very short period of time. So there's a lot of foods that will downregulate inflammation and help balance out the immune system. But one that's good, and I'm not saying it's going to prevent it or cure it, but it is a good tool to bring in your life to start the healing process, are things that drive down inflammation and to help with what are called NRF2 pathways, which is this pro-antioxidant pathway, and decrease what's called NF-kappa B, which is this pro-inflammatory bad guy in high levels. And two of them are turmeric, which is super simple, and probably most people will know about it. It's the main compound found in Indian spices, turmeric, and the actual bioavailable source of it is called curcuminoids. So curcuminoids are really good at attenuating inflammation. It's a good at increasing detoxification pathways as well. And I also like something called pterostilbene. Pterostilbene is less known as curcumin. It's not as well known, but it is a relative to resveratrol. So it's like resveratrol is like a super strong cousin, and it's good at driving inflammation levels too. It's good at increasing these NRF2 pathways and decreasing these inflammatory pathways. So those are two things that you can get in foods, and you also can get them in like natural medicine, like supplement form too.
Okay. And in what type of food can we find them?
Yeah. So the curcumin is found in turmeric spice, and the spice of different curry spices. Pterostilbene is found in different vegetables and fruits to varying degrees. But again, both of those can be standardized, isolated in higher potent amounts, like powder form or capsule form.
Okay. And what would you say would be the one food to avoid absolutely
I would say for autoimmunity, it would be wheat. It would be gluten, mainly gluten-containing grains, specifically wheat. So it's been hybridized, it's been crossbred. It's not what it once was. Again, this mismatch between our genetics and the world around us. Right. It's a different crop than it was in biblical times and in ancient times. So today, our DNA is like, what the heck is this? No human can digest gluten, and to varying degrees, some people can tolerate it. Like some people can smoke a couple packs of cigarette a day and not get lung cancer. Right. Some people will never smoke a day in their life and get lung cancer. It doesn't make smoking healthy, nor does it make gluten healthy. Some people just have a better tolerance of handling it. Some people don't. So I'm not saying that everybody's going to have symptoms from gluten, but many people on the autoimmune inflammation spectrum will tell you they don't do well with gluten. Now, is it just gluten, or is it the spraying of the crop? I think there's an argument there. I think I see many patients do well with on vacation in Europe, they will have like a baguette or something like that, and they don't have the same symptoms as they do in America. So, or is it the fact that when they're on vacation in Europe, they're less stressed? I think there's another variable there too, is that stress is not good for your health either. And I think the other variable too is just the overconsumption of it. I think that's another facet of it as well. And another facet to wheat that's beyond gluten is the FODMAP content. So FODMAPs aren't the protein like the gluten or the lectins like the proteins, but FODMAPs are sugars. They are fermentable sugars that are in grains. So sometimes it's not the gluten, it's the FODMAP content. So there's a lot of variables to consider of why I'm not a huge fan of grains in general for people with autoimmunity, but it's not just gluten. It could be the lectins, the other proteins, it could be the FODMAP sugar or the spraying of the crop, or the hybridization, or all of the above. So that's my food choice to avoid.
And would you suggest to avoid gluten only if you suffer from an autoimmune disease, or everybody should avoid that? And I'm asking that question because gluten is in everything. It's really hard to avoid completely. My son, when he started eating, he could not have gluten, and I had a hard time finding stuff that didn't contain any gluten. So would you say everybody should avoid gluten, or people that are prone to have autoimmune or have autoimmune disease should avoid gluten?
I don't think everybody should avoid it. I don't think it's necessary for everybody to avoid it. I don't think it should be a staple of anyone's diet, but I don't think that, I don't see that clinically. I think I do see some people that have no noticeable symptoms. They enjoy having it every once in a while, and they don't see it being a major problem. Is it a superfood? No. Is it the foundation of the food? No. But I don't think at the same time that you should make blanket statements. And again, my job in functional medicine is find out what your body loves and what your body hates. Some people's body doesn't hate this food, meaning it tolerates it. It can get away with it, but it doesn't have a visceral reaction against it like some people do.
Right. Okay. Well, Dr. Cole, we've come to the end of our interview, but before we go, do you have any last piece of advice you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say that all of this information that we've just talked about can make some people really anxious and be really overwhelmed about like, what the heck, what am I supposed to eat? And they get super nervous and reactionary. That's not my heart and why we said these things. It's really to empower you, and it's really to say, oh, look, this is not about shame or judgment or dogma or dieting. This is about really loving your body enough to nourish it with good food medicine. And I think that's what your mission is as well.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah, so there's shame and dieting restrictions should have no home within wellness. This should really be about feeling great and avoiding foods that don't make you feel great. And if a food doesn't make you feel great, that's not shame. That's just saying, I love myself. I love my health too much. I don't want to feel like crap. So that's really the heart of why I'm mentioning this stuff. It's not to put fear into somebody for the sake of it, but give them a sound mind and context to what impact the foods can have on our health.
And what works for them specifically.
Exactly.
Great advice. Thank you so much. And before we go, you have a free gift that you would like to offer the audience. Is your Heal Your Autoimmune Condition Guide. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's an ebook that I wrote, and it's sort of this awesome condensed guide if they want the starter guide to some action steps they can bring into their life just today. You don't have to be super fancy about it, and it's really evidence-based information for them to integrate in their life to start moving their health in the right direction, whether they have an autoimmune condition or they're somewhere on the autoimmune inflammation spectrum.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Cole, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And everybody at home, thank you for watching Foods That Heal. And don't forget, in the email you receive with this video, there's a link. Click on the link and you'll have access to Dr. Cole's free gift. So until then, enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.